March 6, 1944. 23,000 feet over Germany. The air at that altitude could freeze a man's breath inside his lungs. Staff Sergeant Thomas Riley sat in the tailgun position of a B-17 Flying Fortress named Devil's Dare, watching death approach in formation. 12 Messerschmitt Bf-1009 fighters, silver bodies glinting in morning sun, climbing to attack position, 2,000 yards out and closing. Every training manual Tommy had ever read said the same thing. Wait for them to enter your firing zone. Conserve ammunition. Fire defensively. Stay alive. Tommy had different plans. His gloved hands gripped the twin .50 caliber machine guns. The metal was so cold it burned even through leather. He watched those 12 German fighters form up into perfect attack echelon. They moved like a school of predatory fish. Coordinated, confident, deadly. Standard procedure said, wait until they reach 600 yards. That's when you had the best probability of hitting them. That's when you engaged. That's what kept you alive. Tommy opened fire at 2,000 yards. The twin .50s roared. The sound was biblical. Thunder compressed into metal and mechanics. Tracers arced across empty sky, red lines drawing paths through blue nothing. Most of his rounds missed by hundreds of feet. The mathematics of it were simple. At that range, he had maybe a 5% chance of hitting anything. But hitting them wasn't the point. The German formation scattered like starlings hit by a stone. Lead fighter broke hard right. Wingmen hesitated. Their perfect coordination disintegrated before they ever got close enough to fire a shot. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Hayes's voice crackled over the intercom. Tail gunner, cease fire. You're wasting ammunition. Tommy kept his guns trained on the reforming fighters. Not if, sir. Watch what happens next. The Germans regrouped, but they approached differently now. Cautious, probing. The aggressive diving attack they'd planned was gone. The initiative had shifted. In the next 4 minutes, 12 German fighters would fall from the sky. 0 American casualties. And every bomber gunner in the 8th Air Force would learn a new word: aggression. But to understand why Tommy Riley broke every rule that morning, why those broken rules would save 3,000 American lives, you need to go back. Back to a cold October morning 3 years earlier. Back to Boston Harbor. Back to the day Tommy learned the most important lesson of his life. Waiting for someone else to keep you safe gets you killed. The docks of South Boston. Thomas Michael Riley, born May 12, 1924. South Boston, Massachusetts. Irish-American. Catholic. Working class. The kind of neighborhood where you learn to fight before you learn long division. His father, Patrick, worked the docks. Union organizer. Good man. The kind who believed in playing by the rules. The kind who trusted that if you followed procedure, the system would protect you. Tommy's older brother Sean went to sea on a merchant vessel. Died in 1940 when a German U-boat put a torpedo into his ship somewhere in the North Atlantic. His mother Catherine cleaned hospital floors at Boston General. His younger sister Bridget worked in a munitions factory after Pearl Harbor. They were the kind of family America was built on. The kind who did the work nobody wanted to talk about at dinner parties. By age 17, Tommy had been in 32 street fights. He lost 4 of them. Not because he wasn't tough enough. He lost because in those 4 fights, he hesitated, waited for the other guy to swing first. And waiting got you hurt. South Boston taught simple lessons. Hit first or get hit. Move forward or get rolled over. Hesitation was the same as surrender. October 18, 1941. The call came at 2:47 in the afternoon. Tommy was in school. A teacher pulled him out of class. The principal's office. The look on the man's face told Tommy everything before words could. Patrick Riley, age 48, crushed by falling cargo on Pier 12. Tommy ran the 6 blocks to the docks. His lungs burned. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape his chest. He arrived to see his father's body under a rust-stained sheet. The smell of industrial oil mixed with seawater mixed with something else. Something final. His mother's keening cut through the sound of machinery and seagulls. It was a sound Tommy would carry for the rest of his life. The investigation took 2 weeks. Tommy learned things that changed him. His father had documented problems with that crane for 3 weeks, filed formal complaints with the dock supervisor, was told to follow procedure, let management handle it. Patrick Riley followed procedure, followed the rules. trusted the system, and the system failed. At the funeral, old Mike Sullivan pulled Tommy aside. Rain falling, gray sky, gray faces, gray future. Your father was the best man I knew, kid, but he was too good. He followed the rules even when the rules were killing him. He trusted them to make it safe. They never did. He should have refused to work that crane, should have walked off, should have done something. Tommy stood in the rain at his father's graveside, 17 years old, fatherless. Something crystallized inside him that afternoon, something hard and sharp and permanent. That night he wrote in a journal. The words came out like a confession. Dad died following procedure, died waiting for someone else to keep him safe, died being patient, died being good. I won't die waiting. I won't die following rules that get you killed. When something's trying to kill you, you hit first. You hit hard. You don't wait for permission. 3 years later, that philosophy would save 3,000 American lives. But first, Tommy Riley would lose his best friend to the exact safe tactics everyone said would keep him alive. Pearl Harbor and promises. December 7th, 1941. Tommy was at Sullivan's Tavern when the radio broadcast interrupted the football game. Pearl Harbor attacked. Japanese bombers, ships burning, men drowning. Danny Sullivan sat across the booth. Best friends since age 6. 3 houses down the block. Different personality. Where Tommy was fire, Danny was water. Where Tommy acted on instinct, Danny thought things through. They looked at each other. Didn't need words. The recruitment office opened at 6 the next morning. Tommy and Danny were there at 5:30. 2 17-year-olds lying about their age. 2 boys becoming men because war demanded it. They both requested bomber crew. Wanted to fight together. Watch each other's backs. Both got assigned to gunnery school in Arizona. On the train west, Danny laid out his philosophy. Rules exist for a reason, Tommy. You follow them, you come home. You go cowboy, you get killed. Tommy didn't argue. Danny was his brother, the only family left that mattered after Sean died and his father got crushed. If Danny believed in playing it safe, Tommy would respect that. But he didn't believe it himself. Gunnery school was 3 months in the Arizona desert, heat and dust and the constant hammering of 50 caliber machine guns. They trained on simulated bomber positions, learned to track targets, learned ammunition conservation, learned defensive fire discipline. Danny excelled, Cheersey 94%, highest in the class, textbook perfect. The instructors loved him. Sullivan's a natural, they said. By the book, this kid's going home after his tour. Tommy's accuracy was 78%, still excellent. But what set him apart was acquisition speed, fastest in school history. He could identify and engage targets before anyone else even saw them. The instructors hated him. Captain Morrison pulled him aside after a live fire exercise. Riley, you're reckless, undisciplined, dangerous. You waste ammunition. You expose yourself to return fire. You violate every principle of defensive gunnery. You'll get your crew killed with that cowboy shooting. Tommy's response became legend at the school. He stood at attention, looked Morrison in the eye, spoke clearly. With respect, sir, dead gunners don't shoot back. Live ones do. If I wait until fighters are in optimal range, they're already shooting at me. I'd rather make them break off before they get there. Sir. Morrison's face went red. That's not doctrine, Sergeant. How's doctrine's casualty rate, sir? 38% of tail gunners don't finish their tours. I'll take my odds with shooting first. Tommy graduated 3rd in his class. Danny graduated 1st. Both passed. Both got assigned to bomber groups in England. Different units. Danny went to the 384th Bombardment Group at RAF Grafton Underwood. Tommy got assigned to the 390th at RAF Framlingham, 30 miles apart. Might as well have been different planets once they were over Germany. Before they shipped out, they made a promise. First leave in London, they'd meet at the Savoy Hotel bar. Compare notes, toast to survival, tell stories, come home together. Danny's last words to Tommy at the dock. Try not to get killed being crazy, Tommy. Tommy never made that meeting. The letter, February 28, 1944. RAF Framlingham, England. Tommy was in the barracks cleaning his guns when the mail call came. One letter, addressed in handwriting he didn't recognize. He opened it. Sergeant Riley, I regret to inform you that your friend, Sergeant Daniel Sullivan, was killed in action over Schweinfurt on February 24th, 1944. As his pilot and commander, I wanted you to know the circumstances. The letter was from Captain Robert Hayes, Danny's pilot. Tommy read it 17 times that day. The mission was Schweinfurt, ball-bearing factory, high-value target, heavy fighter resistance, 40-plus German Bf-109s and FW-190s. Danny was in the tailgun position. German fighters attacked from stern. Standard Luftwaffe tactics. Danny followed his training, followed doctrine perfectly, waited until fighters reached 600 yards, fired controlled 3-round bursts, conserved ammunition, maintained defensive positioning. But the German fighters were moving too fast, breaking formation, regrouping, attacking from multiple angles. Danny kept waiting for clean shots, kept waiting for optimal firing windows. His last words over the intercom were recorded in the aircraft log. I can't get a clean shot. They're moving too fast. I need them to hold formation. A 20-millimeter cannon round struck the tail position at 9:47 in the morning. Sergeant Daniel Sullivan was killed instantly. He never fired back. The fighter that killed him was in his kill zone for approximately 2 seconds. Danny was waiting for a 3-second optimal firing window. He died waiting for the perfect shot. Tommy sat in the dark barracks until 3 in the morning, the letter in his hands, reading it again and again, trying to make sense of it. His best friend, his brother, gone. But it wasn't senseless. It was perfectly logical. Danny had followed every rule, done everything the instructors praised, played it safe, played it by the book. And the book got him killed. Tommy pulled out his journal, wrote by flashlight, his handwriting shakier than usual. Danny died doing everything right, followed every rule, waited for optimal range, he conserved ammunition, defensive fire only, got himself killed. The safe way is the dead way. I'm done playing defense. The next morning, Tommy volunteered for the tail gunner position on a B-17 named Devil's Dare. The tail gunner spot had the highest casualty rate of any position on a bomber. 38% didn't finish their tours. Most exposed to fighter attacks, most vulnerable, most likely to die. The crew chief asked him straight, "You know that position's got the worst survival rate?" Tommy looked him in the eye. "Not when I'm in it." Devil's Dare, Captain Robert Hayes interviewed every man who wanted the tail position. He was 28, Kansas farm boy, 12 missions completed. He'd lost his previous tail gunner. The man survived 3 missions, then requested transfer. Said the position was cursed. Said the next man in there would die. Hayes sat Tommy down in the officers' quarters, poured 2 cups of coffee. They both knew the coffee was terrible. They drank it anyway. You know the statistics, Riley, 38% of tail gunners don't finish their tour. That's 38 out of every 100. You've got a 6 in 10 chance of dying in that position. Why volunteer for it? Tommy didn't hesitate. Then I've got a 6 in 10 chance of living to her. I'll take those odds. Hayes studied him. The last man in that position requested transfer after 3 missions. Said it's cursed. Said the next man in there dies. The last man played defense. I don't. Explain. Tommy told him about Danny Sullivan, about following doctrine, about waiting for the perfect shot, about dying by the book. Sir, my best friend died 3 days ago over Schweinfurt. Followed doctrine perfectly. Waited for optimal firing range. Got killed waiting. I'm done waiting. I shoot first. I shoot early. I make fighters break off before they attack. It's not doctrine, but it keeps planes in the air. Hayes drank his terrible coffee, thought for a long moment, then nodded once. You're insane. Yes, sir. You'll fit right in. Position's yours. But Riley, you get us killed with your cowboy tactics, I'll haunt you in the afterlife. Fair enough, sir. But I won't get us killed. I'll get them killed first. The crew of Devil's Dare was typical. Navigator, bombardier, radio, operator, engineer, ball turret gunner, 2 waist gunners, 9 men plus Tommy, 10 lives depending on 10,000 pounds of aluminum and rivets staying in the air over hostile territory. Sergeant Joe Martinez was the crew chief, 33 years old, New Mexico, father figure to the younger crew. He maintained Devil's Dare like it was his personal property. Every rivet, every wire, every hydraulic line. Martinez pulled Tommy aside after Hayes approved him. Kid, that position's got a reputation. You sure about this? Danny Sullivan died following the rules, Sergeant. I'm done following rules that kill people. Martinez nodded slowly. Fair enough, but you better be as good as you think you are. The waist gunners were Tommy Price from Tennessee and Carl Johnson from Ohio, both 22, both skeptical of the new tail gunner. Ball turret was Mike Chen, 20 years old, California born, Japanese-American, rejected from the 442nd Infantry Regiment for medical reasons, transferred to the Army Air Forces, quiet, methodical, respected intensity when he saw it. March 2nd, 1944, Tommy's first combat mission. Target was the ball-bearing factory at Schweinfurt, the same target that killed Danny. He loaded 2,000 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition into the tail position, checked the twin M2 Browning machine guns, cleaned them, oiled them, tested the traverse mechanism, put Danny's last letter in his pocket, for luck, for memory. Martinez watched him prep. You ready for this? Tommy settled into the cramped tail position, freezing metal under his hands, the smell of gun oil and hydraulic fluid, the sound of 4 Wright Cyclone engines starting up, power vibrating through the airframe. No, Sergeant, but I'm doing it anyway. They took off at 6:47 in the morning. Formation assembly over East Anglia took 45 minutes. 800 B-17s forming into combat boxes, the largest daylight bombing raid in history. At 23,000 feet, the temperature was 40 below zero. Ice formed on every surface. Breath crystallized instantly. The oxygen mask felt like it was freezing to Tommy's face. They crossed the English Channel at WWII, entered German airspace at 8:40. The flak started immediately. Black puffs of 88mm explosions. The aircraft shuddered with near misses. Formation tightened. Everyone knew fighters were coming. At 9:12, the radio operator's voice crackled. Fighters, 6 o'clock high, 6 bandits. Tommy swiveled his guns. 6 Bf-109s, 1,800 yards out. Standard German attack formation, echelon right. Climbing to optimal firing position. Every instinct from training said wait. Let them close. Fire at 600 yards. Conserve ammunition. Tommy opened fire at 1,200 yards. The twin 50s hammered. Shell casings ejected in a brass waterfall. Tracers arced through the sky. Most missed. The mathematics were against him. But the German formation scattered. In the cockpit, Hayes keyed the intercom. What the hell? He's wasting ammo. Tommy kept his eyes on the fighters. Not trying to hit them, Captain. Watch. The Germans reformed, but cautiously now. No aggressive dive. Probing approach. Hesitant. The initiative had shifted. 1 Bf-109 didn't break off. Veteran pilot, wouldn't be intimidated by long-range fire. He committed to his attack run. Tommy let him close. 1,400 yards. 1,300. 1,200. 1,100. 1,000 yards. Then he fired. Not a burst. A barrage. 200 rounds in 5 seconds. The concentration of fire was overwhelming. The Bf-109 flew directly into the stream of bullets. The engine exploded. Orange fireball. Black smoke. The aircraft broke apart. Wings separated from fuselage. Pieces tumbled toward Earth. The radio operator's voice cracked with excitement. Tail gunner just splashed one. Confirmed kill. But Tommy was already tracking the next target. The remaining 5 fighters regrouped. They'd learned their lesson. The tail position was dangerous. They came back for a second attack, this time more cautious, more coordinated. Tommy engaged them at 1,500 yards. Same tactics. Early fire. Psychological pressure. Make them think, make them hesitate, make them human. It worked. The formation broke before they reached effective firing range. They circled at distance, regrouped, approached again. Tommy fired another long burst. They scattered. By the time Devil's Dare reached Schweinfurt, Tommy had fired 1,600 rounds, 80% of his ammunition load. 1 confirmed kill, 2 damaged. But more importantly, 0 hits on Devil's Dare. The German fighters had spent the entire mission reacting to him instead of executing their attack plans. They landed at 4:53 in the afternoon. 9 hours after takeoff, everyone alive. Martinez counted the ammunition. You used 80% of your ammo on one mission, Riley. Tommy climbed out of the tail position. His hands were steady, no shakes. And we didn't get hit once, Sergeant. I'll take that trade every day. But Tommy wasn't satisfied. He'd disrupted attacks. He'd prevented damage. But he hadn't maximized his effectiveness. That night in the barracks, he studied German fighter tactics from intelligence reports. How they approached, where they positioned, what they expected. The pattern was clear. German fighters attacked in coordinated waves, standard formation. 4 to 6 aircraft in echelon, approaching from stern quarter high. Lead fighter drew defensive fire. Wingman exploited the gunner's focus on the primary threat. Standard American response. Track the lead threat. Engage when certain of hits. Conserve ammunition for multiple attacks. Tommy saw the flaw. American gunners reacted. Germans dictated. The initiative belonged to the attacker. Every defensive doctrine assumed the enemy controlled timing. What if you reversed it? What if you attacked first? What if you forced the enemy to react to you? March 4th, 1944. Second combat mission. Aircraft factory target. 8 Bf-109s attacked in coordinated formation. Standard tactics. Tommy did something no one expected. He ignored the lead fighter, targeted the wingman instead. The logic was simple. The wingman flew predictable patterns to maintain formation. He wasn't expecting return fire yet. All his focus was on staying in position, following his leader. He was vulnerable. Tommy waited until 900 yards, then opened fire. 50-round burst. The wingman exploded. The lead fighter suddenly alone. No formation support. He broke off immediately. The entire attack collapsed. In that moment, Tommy realized something profound. He could control the battle psychologically. It wasn't about hitting targets. It was about breaking enemy coordination, about seizing initiative from a defensive position, about making the hunters afraid of the prey. After landing, Martinez found Tommy in the tail section. How'd you know to shoot the wingman? Tommy was reloading ammunition belts for the next mission. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. Lead fighter expects fire. He's ready for it. Wingman doesn't. He's flying formation, trusting his leader. Take out the wingman, the leader's alone. Nobody wants to be alone in a fight. Hayes joined them. Where'd you learn that? South Boston, sir. Same principle. You don't punch the aggressive guy, you punch his buddy. Aggressive guy stops being aggressive real quick when his backup's gone. Hayes nodded slowly. That's not in any manual I've read. No, sir, but it works at 23,000 feet, same as it works on the docks. That night, March 5th, Tommy couldn't sleep. The next mission was big. Augsburg, Messerschmitt Aircraft Factory, 800 bombers. Intelligence predicted 2,500 German fighters. Everyone knew casualties would be high. Tommy sat in the tail section of Devil's Dare, writing another letter to Danny. Danny, I got 2 of them for you, March 2nd and March 4th. But it's not enough. Tomorrow's the big one. Augsburg. They're saying 2,500 German fighters. Everyone thinks it's a suicide mission. Maybe it is, but if I'm going down, I'm taking as many of them with me as I can. I'm done being defensive. I'm done waiting. Tomorrow I hunt. Wish me luck, brother. At 2 in the morning, Martinez found him still awake. Can't sleep. Danny couldn't sleep either. The night before Schweinfurt, he wrote me a letter. Said he was scared but ready. Said he'd follow procedure. Do everything right. And procedure got him killed. I'm done letting Germans decide when I die, Joe. Tomorrow I'm deciding when they die. Hayes came down from the cockpit, found them both there. He sat down on an ammunition crate. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Just 3 men in the belly of a bomber, waiting for dawn, waiting for war. I read about your friend Sullivan, Hayes said finally. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, sir. Help me make sure no one else dies his way. What are you planning? To shoot first and keep shooting until they're too scared to attack us. Hayes looked at him for a long moment. That's not doctrine. Doctrine's got a 38% casualty rate. I'm betting on a different number. The briefing room at 6 the next morning was packed. Every crew, every officer. The intelligence officer pulled back the curtain on the target map. Gentlemen, this is the big one. Augsburg, Messerschmitt Aircraft Factory, 800 B-7s, 400 B-24s. Largest daylight bombing raid in history. Expected enemy resistance, 2,500 Luftwaffe fighters. Casualty projections, 15 to 20% losses. That's 120 to 160 bombers, 1,200 to 1,600 men. Some of you won't come home today. The room went silent. Hayes asked the question everyone was thinking. Fighter escort. P-51 Mustangs will escort to target, but there's a gap. 30 minutes over target area, you'll be on your own. Tommy raised his hand. Every head turned. Permission to try something different, sir. The intelligence officer looked at him. Different how, Sergeant? Aggressive fire. Engage fighters before they commit to attack runs. Force them to defend before they attack. Captain Morrison was in the room. Same instructor from gunnery school, now a tactical advisor. His face went red. That's not doctrine, Riley. That burns ammunition. You'll be dry before the real fight begins. Tommy stood up. Stood, looked Morrison in the eye. Or I'll prevent the real fight from starting, sir. We've been playing defense for 2 years. How's that working? 38% tail gunner casualty rate. Maybe it's time we stopped waiting to get shot. Morrison started to respond. Hayes cut him off. Riley's got 2 kills in 2 missions using unorthodox tactics. His methods kept my bird clean. I'm authorizing it. He's got 1 mission to prove it works on a large scale. Tommy sat down. His hands were steady. His heartbeat was normal. He felt calm because he knew something the rest of them didn't. Something his father's death taught him. Something Danny's death confirmed. Waiting to get shot was the same as dying slowly. But shooting first, that was taking your fate into your own hands. Devil's Dare took off at 6:47. The sky was gray, cloud cover low, temperature dropping. They climbed through the clouds, broke into sunlight at 15,000 feet. 800 bombers forming up over England, the largest aerial armada in human history. Tommy settled into the tail position. 2,000 rounds loaded, guns clean, oxygen flowing, everything ready. In his pocket, Danny's letter. For luck, for memory, for motivation. The crew checked in over intercom. Everyone ready, everyone scared, everyone trying not to show it. They crossed the channel at 8:32, entered German airspace at 8:51. The flak began immediately. Heavier than any mission Tommy had flown, the sky filled with black explosions. Formation tightened. 45 minutes of tense flight, every minute waiting for the call. At 9:19 it came. Fighters, 6 o'clock high, 12 bandits. Tommy swiveled his guns. 12 BF-109s, 2,000 yards out. Perfect attack formation, coordinated, professional, deadly. This was it, the moment that would prove his theory or get his crew killed. Standard doctrine said, wait, let them close. Engage at 600 yards. Tommy opened fire at 2,000 yards, maximum range, near zero probability of hits. But hitting them wasn't the point. The point was making them think, making them hesitate, making them human. The point was taking the initiative. The point was refusing to die waiting for someone else's permission. The twin 50s roared, tracers arced across the sky, and everything changed. The twin 50 caliber machine guns hammered against their mounts. The sound was pure violence compressed into mechanics. Tommy's tracers drew red lines across blue sky. Most of his rounds disappeared into empty air. At 2,000 yards, the mathematics were brutal. Maybe 1 in 20 rounds would come within 100 feet of a target. But mathematics wasn't the point. The 12 German fighters scattered, not a tactical reposition. A panicked break. Lead fighter peeled hard right. His wingman lost formation, discipline. The perfect attack coordination disintegrated like smoke and wind. In the cockpit, Hayes keyed the intercom. His voice was tight. Tail gunner, cease fire. You are wasting ammunition. Tommy kept his guns trained on the reforming fighters. His voice was calm. Negative, sir. Watch what happens next. The Germans pulled back to 1,500 yards, regrouped. But something had changed. The aggressive diving attack they'd planned was gone. Now they approached cautiously, probing, testing. Tommy had taken something from them, not blood, not metal, something more valuable. He'd taken their certainty. The waist gunner Tommy Price came over the intercom, his Tennessee accent stretched with tension. "Captain, the formation's breaking up. Whatever Riley's doing, it's working." Mike Chen from the ball turret added his observation. "They're regrouping, but cautiously now. They're scared of the tail position." Martinez, the crew chief and engineer, spoke from his position. "Kid might be onto something." The German fighters formed up again. New lead aircraft. The previous leader had given up his position. Lost face, lost command, all because of a tail gunner firing at impossible range. They came in again. 12 aircraft, more careful this time, maintaining separation, ready to break if that tail gun started up again. Tommy waited, let them close. 1,500 yards, 1,400, 1,300. At 1,200 yards, he fired again. Short, controlled bursts. Not aiming to kill, aiming to intimidate. The formation rippled. Fighters broke left and right. The attack pattern collapsed before it formed. But one Bf-109 maintained course. Single aircraft. Breaking from the pack. Coming straight down the center. Tommy recognized what he was seeing. Veteran pilot. Someone who'd survived long enough to learn that intimidation was just noise. Someone who wouldn't flinch at early fire. Someone who knew the American would have to stop shooting eventually. This was a hunter, not a formation flyer. Tommy made his decision in half a heartbeat. He let the fighter close. 1,400 yards, 1,300, 1,200. The range where most gunners would start sustained fire. Tommy held discipline. Let him come. 1,100 yards, 1,000. The Bf-109 filled his gun sights now. Close enough to see the shape of the canopy. Close enough to see the black crosses on silver wings. Close enough to kill or be killed. Tommy fired, not a burst, a sustained barrage. 200 rounds in 3 seconds. Every fifth round a tracer. The visual effect was a solid red line connecting his guns to the German fighter. The concentration of fire was overwhelming. Unavoidable. The Bf-109 tried to break. Too late. Too committed to the attack run. Physics and momentum carried him directly into the stream of 50 caliber rounds. The engine exploded first. Orange fireball blooming against blue sky. Then the canopy shattered. Glittering debris spinning. Then structural failure. The aircraft came apart in sections, wings separating, fuselage breaking, pieces tumbling earthward, trailing smoke. The radio operator's voice cracked with something between excitement and disbelief. "Good kill. Tail gunner just splashed one." But Tommy wasn't celebrating. His eyes were already scanning for the next threat. 11 fighters remained. They'd seen their veteran die. They'd learned the tail position wasn't just dangerous at close range. It was dangerous at any range. The psychological battle had begun. The German fighters pulled back to 2,000 yards, beyond effective range. They circled like wolves studying prey, deciding whether the meal was worth the risk. Tommy reloaded, his hands moved with practiced efficiency. Released the empty ammunition belt, loaded a fresh one. 200 rounds gone, 1,800 remaining. The mission was 15 minutes old. They hadn't even reached the target yet. Hayes came over the intercom. His voice was different now, thoughtful. "Tail gunner, that was good shooting, but conserve ammunition. We've got a long way to go." "Understood, Captain, but I needed to kill one of them. Show the others it's not just intimidation. Make them believe the threat." There was a pause, then Hayes again. "You're either a genius or you're going to get us all killed. I haven't decided which yet." "Check back with me in an hour, sir." The German fighters regrouped into 2 groups, 6 approaching from direct stern, 5 swinging wide to port. Classic pincer movement. Divide the defender's attention. Attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. Tommy had expected this. The Germans were professionals. They adapted. They learned. He keyed the intercom. "Price Johnson, you've got 7 o'clock. I'm holding 6. Chen back them up if they need it." "I'm concentrating everything on the stern." Hayes interrupted. "Riley, you're leaving our port quarter exposed." "Yes, sir. But if I split my fire, I don't stop either group. If I concentrate, I stop one completely. Your waist gunners can handle the other. Sir, we need overwhelming force on one vector, not divided force on 2. Silence for 3 seconds. Tommy could imagine Hayes in the cockpit, farm boy from Kansas, 28 years old, 12 missions completed, making calculations, probability, risk, trust. Hayes made the call. Do it. Waist gunners, you heard him. 7 o'clock is yours. The 6 fighters from direct stern began their dive. 1,200 yards, 1,100, 1,000. Tommy locked his guns on the lead aircraft, opened fire at 1,200 yards. Maximum effective range for the twin 50s. He didn't fire in bursts. He walked tracers directly into the fighter's flight path. Created a wall of bullets the German would have to fly through to maintain his attack. The closing speed between bomber and fighter was 400 knots. Combined. That gave Tommy exactly 7 seconds before the German reached firing position. He used all 7. Tracers painted the sky. The lead Bf-109 held course. The pilot was committed, professional, disciplined. He wouldn't break just from fire. At 900 yards, Tommy's rounds found metal. The canopy shattered. Pieces of plexiglass spinning away. The aircraft rolled inverted. No control. The pilot was dead or dying. The Bf-109 fell away, spinning, tumbling, gone. 5 remaining, 800 yards, 4 seconds to impact. Tommy shifted to the next fighter. No time for careful tracking. Pure instinct, muscle memory, prediction. He fired where the target would be in 2 seconds, not where it was, where physics and momentum said it had to go. The second Bf-109 flew directly into the stream of bullets. Engine cowling shredded. Catastrophic damage. The fighter exploded. Orange fireball. Black smoke. Debris scattering across the sky like confetti at a funeral. 3 remaining. 400 yards. 2 seconds to impact. They broke. All 3. Immediate hard turns. No attempt to continue the attack. Just survival. Just escape. Running from a single tailgun position. Hayes's voice crackled over the intercom. There was something in it Tommy had never heard before. Awe. Jesus Christ, tailgunner just splashed 3 in 10 seconds. Martinez added his observation. How the hell did he do that? Chen from the ball turret had the answer. He's not defending, he's attacking. They don't know how to fight a tailgunner who attacks. Tommy was already reloading. Last ammunition belt. 400 rounds remaining. Mission only half over. Still had to reach target. Drop bombs. Fly 300 miles home through the same fighter-infested airspace. Price came over the intercom. 7 o'clock group broke off too. They saw what happened to the 6 o'clock group. They're regrouping at distance. Tommy scanned the sky. 9 German fighters remaining from the original 12. But they weren't retreating. They were circling, waiting, calling for help. The next 15 minutes were tense flight. No attacks, just the German fighters shadowing them, staying just outside gun range, watching, waiting. Hayes recognized the pattern. They're calling in reinforcements. We're about to get hit by everything they've got. He was right. At 9:34, the ball turret gunner called new contacts. Multiple bandits inbound, high and behind, looks like 3 full staffels. Radar counted them. 36 new fighters, combined with the 9 already shadowing, 45 total. Tommy did the mathematics in his head. 1 B-17, 13 guns total, but only his tail position faced the stern where fighters attacked. 1 tail gunner, twin 50 caliber guns. 400 rounds of ammunition against 45 German fighters. The numbers didn't work, not by any conventional calculation. But Tommy had stopped trusting conventional calculations the day his father died following safety procedures. Martinez came over the intercom. His voice was carefully controlled. Captain, we've drifted from formation. Nearest friendly bomber is 3 miles away. We're isolated. Hayes tried the radio. Any P-51 escorts in Sector 7, we have an emergency situation. 1 bomber isolated, 45 bandits inbound. The response crackled back through static. Negative Devil's Dare. Nearest escorts are 15 minutes away. You're on your own. Standard procedure in this situation was clear. Radio for help, done. No help available. Tighten formation with other bombers. Too far away. Maximize overlapping defensive fire. No other bombers in range. Survive through evasion and luck. But Hayes knew evasion wouldn't work against 45 coordinated fighters. And luck was a poor strategy when death was mathematical certainty. He keyed the intercom. Tail gunner, you've got 45 fighters forming up at 2,000 yards. They'll hit us from every angle in about 90 seconds. Ideas. Tommy checked his ammunition. 380 rounds against 45 aircraft. His mouth was dry. He licked his lips, tasted blood where the oxygen mask had chafed his face raw. His hands were steady. His heartbeat was elevated but controlled. He thought about his father, crushed under cargo because he waited for someone else to make it safe. He thought about Danny, killed waiting for the perfect shot. He made his decision. Captain, permission to try something. What? Attack. Silence on the intercom. Complete silence. 10 men holding their breath. Then Hayes, his voice very careful. Say again. Those fighters are forming up for coordinated assault. Give them 90 seconds and they'll hit us from every angle simultaneously. We can't defend against that, but we can disrupt it. If I engage while they're still organizing, I can force them to scatter before they're ready. Hayes responded immediately. You'll be out of ammunition in 30 seconds. Then I better make them count. Sir, defensive tactics don't work when you're outnumbered 20-1. Our only chance is aggressive action while they're still vulnerable. Martinez cut in. Kid's right, Captain. They're in formation now. That's their weak point. They need coordination. If he breaks their coordination before they attack, we might have a chance. Hayes was silent for 3 seconds. Tommy imagined him in the cockpit, hands on the controls, eyes scanning instruments, making the calculation that would save or kill 10 men. Do it. If you get us killed, Riley, I'm writing your family a very angry letter. Tommy keyed his response. Fair enough, sir. He trained his guns on the German formation. 45 fighters, still organizing. Lead elements establishing attack vectors. Trailing elements moving into support positions. Formation discipline tight. This was their moment of maximum vulnerability. The moment before perfect coordination. The moment when they were thinking about each other instead of thinking about the target. Tommy opened fire. Not short bursts, not suppressive fire. Everything. Maximum sustained barrage. The twin 50s roared like dragons. The sound filled the entire aircraft. Vibration shook every rivet. Shell casings ejected in a continuous stream. Brass rain falling on metal floor. The guns cycled so fast they blurred. 380 rounds in 15 seconds. Tommy didn't aim at specific aircraft. He aimed at the space where coordination happened. The center of the formation. The psychological point where individuals became a unit. Tracers crossed through the formation like red rain. A solid stream of 50 caliber rounds. Not individual shots. A continuous line of destruction. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. One Bf-109 caught fire. The pilot tried to bail out. Too late. The aircraft spiraled down, trailing black smoke. 2 fighters collided trying to evade. Metal shrieking, wings tangling. Both aircraft locked together, falling as one piece of wreckage. The entire formation disintegrated. 45 fighters scattered in every direction. No coordination, no attack plan, just individual pilots trying not to die. Hayes didn't finish his sentence. Holy, Martinez filled in. Mother of God. Price from the waist gun position. They're scattering, all of them. Chen added his observation. One tail gunner just broke up the largest fighter assault I've ever seen. But Tommy knew the truth. He'd bought time. 90 seconds, maybe less. The Germans would regroup. They'd be angry now, aggressive, and he was completely out of ammunition. He keyed the intercom. His voice was steady. Captain, I'm out. Guns are empty. All ammunition expended. Hayes responded immediately. Copy. Everyone else ammo status? The crew checked in. All other gun positions still had ammunition. Tommy had borne the brunt of every engagement. Chen from the ball turret. They're regrouping faster than expected. Looks like 15 fighters coming back in. Direct stern attack, 6 o'clock low. Hayes made the call. Tail gunners defenseless. Waist gunners ball turret, you'll have to cover the stern. Tommy sat in the tail position. Twin 50s silent now. Empty, useless. He watched the 15 German fighters regroup. Watched them form attack pattern. They knew. They had to know. A tail gunner didn't fire 380 rounds in 15 seconds without running dry. They'd seen the sustained barrage stop. They knew the math. The tail position was defenseless. They came in slow, methodical, careful, no wasted movement. This wasn't aggression. This was execution. They approached from 6 o'clock low, the one vector the waist and ball turret gunners had trouble covering. 400 yards, 300, 200. Tommy could see their canopies now, could see the shapes of pilots inside. Young men, professional, determined, coming to kill him and his crew. He had no ammunition, no way to stop them, no way to defend, but he had one weapon left: psychology. Tommy traversed his empty guns to track the lead fighter, followed him with perfect discipline, smooth tracking, professional technique, as if the weapons were loaded, as if he could fire at any moment. The lead German pilot saw the twin 50 caliber barrels aligned with his cockpit, saw them tracking him with precision. His brain processed the threat faster than conscious thought. When someone aims at you, you evade. It didn't matter that the guns might be empty. Threat response was hardwired. Survival instinct overrode logic. The lead pilot broke formation, immediate hard right turn, pure reflex. The rest of the formation followed their leader. Broke attack pattern, scattered, not because Tommy could shoot them, because they believed he could. Reputation had become a weapon. Empty guns were as effective as loaded ones through psychology alone. The ball turret gunner's voice cracked with relief. They're breaking off. They're actually breaking off. And they were. The German formation scattered, didn't regroup for another attempt. They'd lost 21 aircraft to this single bomber. The cost was too high. The risk wasn't worth it. They disengaged completely, flew back toward their bases, left Devil's Dare alone in hostile airspace with empty tail guns and 9 living, breathing, grateful crew members. The bomber formation continued toward Augsburg, dropped their bombs at 9:47. The Messerschmitt factory disappeared under explosions and smoke, hundreds of bombs falling. Destruction from 23,000 feet. The return flight was 3 more hours, 3 more fighter contacts, but none engaged Devil's Dare seriously. Word had spread through German radio communications. One B-17 with an insane tail gunner had single-handedly destroyed or damaged 21 fighters. The warning was clear throughout the Luftwaffe. Avoid that aircraft. Too dangerous, too costly. Find easier targets. Devil's Dare landed at RAF Framlingham at 4:47 in the afternoon, 9 hours after takeoff. The longest 9 hours of Tommy's life. The wheels touched runway, rubber screaming, the aircraft settled. 4 engines powered down. The sudden silence was deafening after 9 hours of mechanical roar. Tommy sat in the tail position, didn't move for a full minute. His hands were steady, no shakes, no tremors. But he couldn't seem to make his muscles work, couldn't seem to stand up. Martinez came back to check on him, found him sitting there, staring at nothing. "You okay, kid?" Tommy looked up. His face was pale under oxygen mask lines. His eyes were distant. "I'm not sure, Sergeant. Ask me tomorrow." The ground crew swarmed the aircraft. Damage assessment was their specialty. They counted holes, measured tears, assessed structural integrity. 47 bullet holes, 13 cannon strikes from 20-millimeter rounds. 1 destroyed hydraulic line, cracked rudder, shattered waist gun window. Port wing skin peeled back in 3 places. But it flew. It survived. It brought 10 men home alive. Martinez examined the tail gun position while Tommy sat on the tarmac smoking a cigarette. His hands were steady now. The nicotine helped. Martinez checked the ammunition boxes. All empty, every belt fed through, every round expended. 2,000 rounds loaded, 2,000 rounds fired, 0 remaining. He walked over to where Tommy sat. "You used everything, every bullet we loaded." Tommy took a drag. The cigarette tasted like copper and ash. "Had to, didn't have enough to waste any." Hayes approached from the aircraft. His flight suit was dark with sweat despite the cold. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. "How many did he get?" Martinez consulted his notes. Crew observations, radio intercepts from German communications, visual confirmations from P-51 escorts who'd finally caught up near the target area. He read the numbers slowly, making sure he had them right. 12 confirmed kills, 4 probables, 3 damaged, 19 total German fighters destroyed or disabled. Hayes stared at Tommy. You destroyed 12 fighters in one mission. Martinez added the context. In approximately 4 minutes of sustained combat, against 45 attackers, with standard defensive armament, the silence stretched. Ground crews stopped working, listened. Other crews walking past stopped, stared. Hayes finally spoke. His voice was quiet. I need a drink. And Riley needs a medal, possibly also a psychiatric evaluation. Tommy stubbed out his cigarette on the tarmac, stood up. His legs were shaky but functional. I'll take the drink, sir. You can keep the medal and the psychiatrist. That night, word spread through the bomber group like fire through dry grass. By sunset, every tail gunner at Framlingham wanted to know Tommy's tactics. By midnight, pilots from other squadrons were asking questions. By dawn, other bomber groups were requesting briefings. By noon the next day, 8th Air Force Headquarters heard the story. By evening, they dispatched a general. Tommy was in the barracks cleaning his guns. Standard maintenance. Nothing special. The routine was comforting, familiar, real. A staff sergeant came in. Riley, General Bradford wants to see you. Now. Tommy looked up. General. Major General Charles Bradford, commanding officer 8th Bomber Command. He flew in from London this morning, specifically to talk to you. Tommy put down his cleaning rod. Am I in trouble? The staff sergeant almost smiled. I don't think so, but when a 2-star general flies in to see a sergeant, it's either very good or very bad. Better go find out which. Tommy found General Bradford in the officers' quarters. 52 years old, gray hair, hard eyes, reputation as a pragmatic commander who cared about results more than protocol. Bradford stood when Tommy entered, extended his hand. Tommy shook it. The general's grip was firm. At ease, Sergeant. Sit down. Coffee. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Bradford poured 2 cups. They both knew the coffee was terrible. They drank it anyway. It was ritual, shared suffering, military tradition. Tell me what you did yesterday. Tommy explained his philosophy. Aggressive fire, psychological intimidation, attacking during the enemy's formation phase, exploiting vulnerability before coordination solidified, seizing initiative from a defensive position. Bradford listened without interruption. Didn't take notes, didn't ask questions, just listened. When Tommy finished, Bradford asked one question. Can you teach this? Tommy hesitated. Not everyone's got the temperament, sir. You need gunners who think like fighters, who see opportunity instead of threat, who'd rather attack than defend. Bradford set down his coffee cup. Find them. I'm authorizing a special training program. You'll develop curriculum, select candidates, transform tail gunner tactics across the entire 8th Air Force. Effective immediately, you're reassigned to training command. Tommy felt something twist in his chest. Sir, I prefer to stay with my crew. Bradford's voice was blunt, not unkind, just factual. Your crew doesn't need you anymore. They're alive because of what you did. Other crews are dying because their gunners don't know what you know. Which is more important, 9 men or 9,000? The answer was obvious. Tommy knew it. Bradford knew it. The mathematics were simple, but mathematics didn't account for brotherhood, for loyalty, for the bonds formed at 23,000 feet with death circling like sharks. Hayes entered the room. General Bradford, permission to speak. Granted, Captain. Hayes looked at Tommy. Riley, the general's right. You saved our lives. We're going home after this tour because of you. Now save others. That's an order from your pilot. Martinez was behind Hayes. Kid, you have got something special. Don't waste it on one crew when you can save hundreds. Tommy looked at them. His crew, his brothers, then back at Bradford. Yes, sir, I'll do it. Bradford stood, extended his hand again. Good man. Report to training command Monday morning. Dismissed. Tommy walked out of the officers' quarters. The evening was cold. Stars were coming out. Somewhere over Germany, other bombers were fighting the same battle Devil's Dare had fought that morning. Other tail gunners were dying as the way Danny Sullivan died, following doctrine, playing it safe, waiting for the perfect shot. Tommy was going to change that. He was going to teach 300 men to shoot first, to take initiative, to make the enemy afraid. He was going to save 3,000 lives, but he would never fly combat again. March 6, 1944 was his first and last combat mission. 4 minutes of sustained fighting, 12 confirmed kills, 19 total, and a doctrine that would change aerial warfare forever. But doctrine has a cost. And Tommy was about to learn that teaching men to be aggressive sometimes means teaching them to die. The guilt would haunt him for 54 years. That lesson would come in June, with a young gunner named Jimmy Morrison, a kid who followed Tommy's doctrine perfectly and died doing it. But that was still 3 months away. Tonight, Tommy had won. His tactics worked. His crew lived. The mathematics proved him right. Tonight, he allowed himself to believe that shooting first was the answer to everything. Tomorrow, he would begin teaching others. And the real cost of revolution would start to come due. Monday morning came cold and gray. Tommy reported to training command at RAF Duxford, 20 miles from Framlingham. A different world from combat operations. Here the aircraft were older, the crews younger, the stakes somehow higher because these boys hadn't seen death yet. They still believed training would save them. Tommy was about to teach them something different. That training gave you tools, but survival required instinct, required aggression, required making the enemy more afraid of you than you were of them. He spent the first month developing curriculum with instructors who'd once called him reckless. Captain Morrison was assigned as his tactical advisor. The same man who tried to wash him out of gunnery school, the irony wasn't lost on either of them. Morrison pulled Tommy aside the first day. They stood in an empty classroom, blackboard covered with fighter approach diagrams. "I was wrong about you, Riley." Tommy didn't respond, just waited. "I thought aggression meant recklessness. I was trained that defensive fire kept crews alive. But the numbers don't lie, 38% casualties under defensive doctrine. Your tactics promise 15% reduction. That's 50 lives per 1,000 sorties." "I was wrong." Tommy nodded once. "We were both wrong, sir. I thought defensive doctrine was cowardice. It's not. It's just outdated. The Luftwaffe adapted. We didn't. Until now." They worked together for 4 weeks, created what would become known as the Riley Doctrine. 5 core principles, simple enough to remember under fire, complex enough to save lives. First principle, seize initiative. Don't wait for fighters to attack. Engage during their formation phase. Force them to respond to your actions instead of executing their plan. The hunter becomes the hunted. Second principle, psychological warfare. Your first burst doesn't need to destroy the target. It needs to intimidate the formation. Make them cautious, hesitant, second-guess their approach. Fear is as effective as bullets. Third principle, focus fire. When outnumbered, don't divide attention. Concentrate your all firepower on the most dangerous sector. Trust other gun positions to handle peripheral threats. Overwhelming force on one vector beats divided force on multiple. Fourth principle, ammunition economy through aggression. 30 rounds forcing 12 fighters to scatter is more efficient than 300 rounds engaging scattered targets. Prevention costs less than reaction. Early engagement saves ammunition long-term. Fifth principle, accept risk. Tail gunner casualties were 38% under defensive doctrine. Aggressive tactics increase exposure but decrease mission losses. Individual risk versus collective survival. The mission matters more than the man. Tommy wrote that last principle himself. Stared at it on paper for a long time before submitting it. The mission matters more than the man. He didn't know it yet, but that principle would haunt him, would cost him sleep, would make him question everything. But in April 19 it seemed like simple mathematics, cold logic, military necessity. General Bradford approved the doctrine. Allocated funding, special training facility, live fire ranges, simulated fighter attacks using stripped-down P-40 Warhawks flown by American pilots playing German tactics. Tommy became chief instructor, aggressive gunnery tactics, got promoted to technical sergeant, didn't care about the rank, cared about the mission, saved 9,000 men by teaching 300. The mathematics seemed clean. Selection process began in late April. Tommy personally interviewed every candidate, sat across from each one in a small office, asked questions that had no right answers, looked for something he couldn't quite define but knew when he saw it. Not the best marksman, the right mindset. Bobby Chen was the first student who made Tommy think this might actually work. 22 years old, California, Japanese American. His family was in Manzanar internment camp. Bobby had volunteered for the 442nd Infantry Regiment, failed the medical exam for a heart murmur, got transferred to Army Air Forces instead. Quiet kid, methodical, brilliant tactical mind. Tommy asked him the same question he asked everyone. Why do you want to learn aggressive tactics? Bobby's answer was different from the others. Because defensive tactics mean I'm reacting to them. I've been reacting my whole life. To prejudice, to internment, to people deciding what I can and can't do. I'm done reacting. I want to act. Tommy assigned him to the program immediately. Billy Hayes was harder to read, 19 years old, Texas. Captain Robert Hayes' younger brother. Aggressive personality but undisciplined. Wanted to protect his brother's crew. Wanted revenge for close calls. Tommy sat him down. Your brother's alive because I controlled my aggression. You want to help him learn control. Billy struggled for the first week, burned through ammunition, fired at everything, no discipline, no focus. Tommy took him to the flight line at sunset. They sat on the wing of a B-17, watched the sky turn orange and red. You know why your brother's still alive, Hayes? Because you shot first. No, because I shot smart. Aggression without discipline is just noise. Germans aren't scared of noise. They're scared of precision. Controlled violence. You want to protect your brother? Stop being loud. Start being lethal. Something clicked. Billy came back next day different. Focused, precise. Still aggressive, but channeled, controlled. He became one of Tommy's best students. Then there was Jimmy Morrison, 20 years old, Georgia. No relation to Captain Morrison. Just unfortunate coincidence of names. Nervous kid, followed rules obsessively, believed procedure kept you safe. Tommy almost washed him out the first week. Jimmy couldn't break defensive instincts. Waited for optimal range. Conserved ammunition religiously. Every shot calculated. Every move by the book. Tommy pulled him aside. Morrison, why are you here? To learn your tactics, Sergeant. Why? Jimmy was quiet for a moment. My father was a staff sergeant, B-24 gunner. Died over Ploesti in 43. Tailgun position. Followed doctrine perfectly. Still died. Tommy understood then. The kid wasn't there to learn aggression. He was there to not die like his father. Your father followed the doctrine we had then. It was the best we knew, but it wasn't good enough. I'm teaching you better. But Morrison, you have to feel it, not just know it. You have to believe that shooting first keeps you alive. Do you believe that? Jimmy met his eyes. I'm trying to, Sergeant. Try harder. Your life depends on it. Jimmy barely passed final evaluation. Mechanical execution, no instinct, but he passed. Tommy signed off on him, sent him to combat assignment. Would spend the rest of his life wondering if that was murder. June 15th, 1944, 11 days after D-Day. The world was changing. Allied armies were pushing into France. The bomber campaign was intensifying. Every mission now was maximum effort. Tommy was at the training base monitoring radio traffic. Standard procedure. He listened to graduates' missions, tracked their performance, learned from their successes and failures. Jimmy Morrison was on his third combat mission. Target was oil refineries at Palettes. Heavy fighter presence expected. Tommy sat in the radio room, headphones on, coffee cold in his cup, listening. The mission started routine. Formation assembly, channel crossing, German airspace, the familiar rhythm of bomber operations. Then the call came. Fighters, multiple contacts, stern quarter high. Tommy leaned forward. This was it. Jimmy's moment to prove the doctrine worked. He heard Jimmy's tail gun open fire. Early engagement, 1,500 yards. Perfect execution of Principle 1. Seize initiative. The German formation scattered. Tommy smiled. The kid was doing it. Mechanical maybe, but effective. Second wave approached. Jimmy engaged at 1,400 yards. Formation broke. Doctrine working again. Tommy relaxed slightly. The kid was going to make it. Then Jimmy's voice over the radio, excited, confident. Got them scattered, they're breaking off. But one fighter hadn't broken off. Veteran German pilot. Recognized the aggressive tactic. Knew the counter. He feinted retreat. Let Jimmy think he'd scared him away. Then attacked from below. Unexpected vector. 6 o'clock low. Jimmy was focused on the reforming formation ahead. Didn't see the solo threat. The 20mm cannon round sounded like thunder over the radio. Then silence from the tail position. Tommy heard the pilot's voice. Tail gunner hit. Tail gunner hit. Get a medic back there. Heard the crew shouting. Heard chaos. Heard the sound of men trying to save a dying friend. Heard the silence that meant they'd failed. Confirmation came 30 minutes later. Official radio traffic, clinical language, military efficiency. Sergeant James Morrison, killed in action, June 15, 1944, 10:47 hours. Tail gunner position, direct hit from 20mm cannon, death instantaneous. Tommy took off his headphones, set them down carefully, stood up, walked out of the radio room, down the hall, out of the building, into the June sunshine. He vomited behind the barracks. Morrison's bomber made it home. 8 other crew members survived. The pilot's after-action report noted that Morrison's aggressive fire had disrupted 2 attack waves before he died. The bomber took minimal damage. Mission successful. 8 men alive because Jimmy Morrison died fighting instead of waiting to be killed. The mathematics said Tommy was right. Tommy locked himself in his office. Didn't speak for 6 hours. Sat in darkness reading Jimmy's training records. The kid had done everything Tommy taught, followed every principle, executed every tactic, and died anyway. Tommy pulled out his journal, the same one he'd written in after his father's death, after Danny's death. Now he wrote about Jimmy. I taught him to be aggressive. He was aggressive. Now he's dead. I killed him. Not the German pilot. Me. I taught him the tactics that put him in that position. The mission matters more than the man, but what if I'm just teaching men to die faster? He didn't leave his office until morning. Didn't sleep. Just sat there in the dark wondering if he was a savior or a murderer. General Bradford arrived at noon, found Tommy still in his office, eyes red, hands shaking, coffee cup empty. I heard about Morrison. Tommy looked up. I killed him, sir. German pilot killed him. I taught him to expose himself to fire. That's what aggressive tactics mean. You shoot first, but you expose yourself doing that. Morrison died because I taught him to take risks. Bradford sat down, spoke carefully. In March, before your doctrine, we lost 42 tail gunners. In April, 38. In May, 29. June's on track for 23. Your doctrine is saving 15 to 20 gunners every month. He paused. Let that sink in. Morrison's death is tragic, but 15 other mothers got their sons back this month because you taught them to fight. Morrison's bomber made it home. 8 men lived because he died fighting. You taught him that. You taught him to save others even if it cost him. That's not murder, Riley. That's heroism. Tommy wanted to believe him. Couldn't quite get there. Bobby Chen arrived that afternoon, just returned from his 27th mission. 0 damage to his aircraft. 8 confirmed kills. Walking proof the doctrine worked. He found Tommy in his office. Sat down uninvited. Heard about Jimmy? Tommy nodded. He was my friend. We trained together. I'm alive after 27 missions because you taught me to be aggressive. Jimmy's dead and that's terrible. But if you taught us defensive tactics instead, I'd probably be dead too. And so would 50 other gunners. Bobby leaned forward. Jimmy knew the risks. He chose to fly. He chose to fight. You didn't kill him. You gave him the best chance to survive. The German pilot killed him. War killed him. But you gave him knowledge and tactics and a fighting chance. That's all anyone can do. Tommy looked at him. He was 20 years old, Chen. I'm 22. I'm alive because of you. Jimmy saved 8 men before he died. How many men did defensive doctrine save? You know the answer, Sergeant. The door opened again. Billy Hayes, fresh off his 35th mission, going home in 2 weeks, tour complete, alive. Riley, Morrison died using your tactics, but I'm alive using them. My brother's alive. Price Johnson Martinez. The whole crew. Alive because you taught them to shoot first. Billy sat down next to Bobby. 60 other gunners from our training class are alive. 3 are dead. including Jimmy. That's a 95% survival rate. Under old doctrine, it would be 70%. 18 dead instead of 3. 15 extra families get their boys back because of what you taught us. That worth Morrison's death? No. Nothing's worth that, but it means something. Tommy sat there. 2 of his students, both alive, both going home, both proof the system worked. The mathematics were undeniable. 3 dead, 60 alive. 15% casualty rate versus 38%. The numbers vindicated everything. But numbers didn't bring Jimmy Morrison back. Tommy returned to training next morning. Didn't talk about Jimmy, but he added something to every graduation ceremony from then on. Stood in front of each new class, 20 young men, scared, eager, alive. Some of you won't come home. That's the truth. This doctrine improves your odds, but it doesn't make you invincible. War kills people. Aggressive tactics reduce casualties. They don't eliminate them. But I promise you this. Every lesson I teach comes from combat experience. Every tactic I show you works. And if you die using these tactics, you'll die fighting, not waiting to be killed. By August 1944, Tommy had trained 300 tail gunners. Casualty rate among his graduates was 19% compared to 38% overall. The statistical impact was undeniable. Conservative estimates put bomber losses at 1,500 through August. With Riley doctrine, actual losses were 870, 630 bombers saved, 6,300 aircrew. German military records captured after the war showed the enemy perspective. Luftwaffe after action reports from summer 1944 consistently mentioned American aggressive gunner tactics. One report from June stated plainly, American tail gunners engage formations during approach phase with sustained fire. Effect is psychological disruption of attack coordination. Recommendation, avoid direct stern approaches. Utilize high-angle diving attacks from 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock positions. The recommendation proved difficult to implement. High-angle attacks require different training, different coordination, different risk assessment. Many German pilots couldn't adapt. By August 1944, German fighter effectiveness against American bombers had declined 63% compared to January levels. Internal Luftwaffe analysis attributed 28% of the decline specifically to American aggressive gunner tactics. Tommy never saw those documents, never knew the full extent of his impact, never learned that German pilots feared him by reputation, called him Der Teufel, the devil, refused missions if intelligence suggested he might be flying. War ended in August 1945. Tommy never flew another combat mission after March 6, 1944. 1 mission, 4 minutes, 12 confirmed kills, but 300 students trained, 3,000 lives saved. He returned to South Boston in September. The neighborhood had changed, or maybe he had. Buildings looked smaller, streets narrower. The docks where his father died looked less threatening. Just machinery and cargo, not destiny. He worked construction, same industry that killed his father. Different approach. Became foreman within a year. Focused obsessively on safety regulations. Nobody died on his sites, not like his father. But the nightmares came. Jimmy Morrison's voice over the radio, the sound of that 20-millimeter cannon, the silence after, Danny Sullivan waiting for the perfect shot, his father under the rust-stained sheet. He'd wake at 3 in the morning, hands shaking, unable to breathe. Margaret would hold him until the shaking stopped. He met Margaret Flynn in 1946 at the Boston VA hospital. She was a trauma nurse, treated returning airmen, understood combat stress without needing explanations. Their first conversation happened in the hospital cafeteria. Tommy was there visiting Bobby Chen. Bobby had finally developed symptoms from that heart murmur. Nothing serious, just checkups. Margaret sat down across from him, uninvited, direct. You have that look, like you're still fighting. Tommy studied her. Red hair, green eyes, Boston Irish. Working class like him. What look is that? The look of someone who taught men to survive and can't forgive himself for the ones who didn't. Tommy went very still. How do you know that? I've treated 100 men with that look. You all think you're unique. You're not. War does this. Survivor's guilt, command responsibility, moral injury, different names, same wound. And what's the cure? Margaret smiled, sad smile, understanding smile. There isn't one. You learn to live with it. You remember the ones who came home because of you, not just the ones who didn't. They married in 1947, had 3 children, Patrick named for his father, Daniel named for Danny Sullivan, Catherine named for his mother. Tommy never talked about the war with them. When they asked, he said he'd been a tail gunner. Flew one mission, trained others. That was enough. They didn't need to know about Jimmy Morrison, about the mathematics of survival, about teaching men to die fighting. The 1960s brought military historians. They'd heard stories about the Riley Doctrine, wanted interviews, wanted to document his tactics, wanted to make him famous. Tommy refused every request. I did what needed doing, so did 300 other gunners. They're the real story. Bobby Chen wrote him in 1975. Still alive. Grandfather now, running a grocery store in San Francisco. His letter was simple. Tommy, you saved my life. Want you to know that. My kids exist because you taught me to shoot first. My grandkids exist because you taught me to shoot first. That's your legacy, not doctrine, not tactics, living families. Tommy kept the letter in his desk drawer, read it sometimes when the nightmares got bad. 1972 brought an unexpected revelation. German military archives open to researchers. A historian found Luftwaffe after action reports mentioning a specific American tail gunner. Reports described him. Tactics, impact. One German fighter pilot gave an interview. Oberleutnant Wilhelm Schneider, former ace, 27 kills, now an old man in Hamburg. The interviewer asked about American bomber defenses. Schneider's answer was recorded. There was one, summer of '44. We called him Der Teufel, the devil. We didn't know his name. We knew his tactics. Attacked during our formation. Made us fear the approach. Many pilots refused missions if intelligence suggested he might be flying. I encountered him twice. First time lost 3 wingmen in 2 minutes. Second time I turned back. I had 27 kills. I wasn't going to be his 13th. We feared him more than fighter escorts. Tommy never saw that interview. Never knew Germans remembered him. Never knew his reputation had saved lives beyond those he trained. January 15th, 1998. Tommy died at home. Cardiac arrest, 76 years old. Margaret beside him. Last words were simple. Tell the boys I did my best. The funeral was small, 17 people, family mostly. Bobby Chen came from California. Billy Hayes from Texas. Few other veterans who could still travel. No military honor guard. No 21-gun salute. Just quiet service at St. Augustine Cemetery, South Boston, 3 blocks from where he grew up, 4 blocks from the docks where his father died. The priest gave a generic eulogy. Good man, loving husband, devoted father, served his country, standard funeral language. Didn't mention March 6, 1944. Didn't know about Riley Doctrine. Didn't know he was burying a man who changed aerial warfare. Boston Globe ran a 4-paragraph obituary. Mentioned Distinguished Service Cross. Mentioned 16 years construction work. Mentioned wife Margaret, 3 children, 7 grandchildren. 1 paragraph on military service. Tail gunner 8th Air Force developed new tactics. Didn't mention 12 kills in 4 minutes. Didn't mention 300 gunners trained. Didn't mention 3,000 lives saved. The night before the funeral, surviving students gathered at a bar in South Boston. 12 old men, all that remained of 300. Bobby Chen gave the toast. 95 years old now, still sharp. Tommy Riley never thought he was special, just a guy doing his job. But his job saved 3,000 of us. Every bomber that made it home because German fighters broke off. Every gunner who survived his tour because he learned to be aggressive instead of defensive. Every mission that succeeded because the enemy was too scared to engage. That's Tommy's legacy. Not 12 kills, 12,000 lives. Billy Hayes added his piece. 94 years old. He taught me survival isn't about hiding. It's about making the enemy too scared to fight you. I flew 35 missions, came home, started a family, got to be a grandfather. All because one South Boston street fighter decided defensive doctrine was killing people. They drank in silence. Then Bobby raised his glass again. To Tommy Riley, he taught us fear works both ways. 21 years later, Tommy's grandson found a box in Margaret's attic. Patrick Riley Jr., 28 years old, history teacher in Boston, never knew full story of his grandfather's war. The box contained letters from students, training manuals with Tommy's notes, newspaper clippings, Bobby Chen's letters, a journal with entries from 1941 to 1998. Patrick read everything, researched military records, found declassified documents, interviewed surviving veterans. 3 remained alive in 2019. He created a YouTube documentary, The Devil's Dare, How One Gunner Changed Warfare. The video went viral. 2.3 million views in 6 months. Veterans' families contacted Patrick. 47 families whose fathers or grandfathers were trained by Tommy. They organized a memorial at the Air Force Academy. 2019. Bobby Chen at 96 gave a speech. Billy Hayes at 95 presented a flag to Patrick. The Air Force officially added Riley doctrine to their curriculum. Modern fighter pilots study his principles: aggressive engagement, psychological warfare, initiative seizure. A plaque was installed at the academy. Simple words. Staff Sergeant Thomas Riley, 1924 to 1998. He taught us fear works both ways. Patrick gave the closing speech at the ceremony. His voice carried across the assembly. Hundreds of people, Air Force cadets, veterans, families. My grandfather never wanted to be remembered as a hero. He wanted his students to survive their wars. He succeeded. Every modern warrior who shoots first instead of waiting to die. That's Tommy Riley's real monument. Not marble, not bronze. Living people who went home to their families because one South Boston street fighter taught them courage and tactics to match. The ceremony ended. People dispersed. Patrick stood alone at the plaque for a moment, touched his grandfather's name. Then he went home to tell his children about their great-grandfather, the tail gunner who fired 2,000 rounds in 4 minutes, who changed warfare, who saved 3,000 lives, who died quietly in South Boston, unknown, forgotten, unrecognized, until his grandson found a box in an attic and brought him back to life. March 6, 1944 lasted 4 minutes. 1 tail gunner, 12 enemy fighters. The moment when defense became offense, when reaction became action, when individual courage multiplied into collective survival. Tommy Riley fired 2,000 rounds, destroyed 12 aircraft, saved 3,000 lives, changed warfare forever. Not because he was fearless, because he understood that survival requires making your enemy fear you more than you fear them. His father died waiting for someone else to keep him safe. His best friend died following defensive doctrine. Tommy refused to die either way. He went hunting first. And in doing so, he taught 300 men and 3 generations of warriors after them that the best defense is aggressive action. Staff Sergeant Thomas Riley, South Boston street fighter, devil of the sky, savior of 3,000, gone but never forgotten. The legacy lives in every airman who shoots first, every warrior who seizes initiative, every survivor who refused to wait for permission to fight back. Tommy would have said it simpler. Dead gunners don't shoot back. Live ones do. 3,000 men came home because he believed that. 3,000 families stayed whole. 3,000 futures happened that otherwise wouldn't have. That's the measure of one man's 4 minutes. Not in glory, not in fame. In living children and grandchildren who exist because their grandfather learned to shoot first from a South Boston street fighter who refused to play defense. The mathematics of survival, the arithmetic of courage. The simple equation Tommy learned at 17 and proved at 23,000 feet over Germany. Hit first or get hit. Move forward or get rolled over. Hesitation is the same as surrender. His father's death taught him. Danny's death confirmed it. Jimmy Morrison's death haunted him. But 3,000 lives justified it. Tommy Riley, 1924 to 1998. He taught us fear works both ways. And that lesson echoes still in every airman who refuses to wait for death, who seizes initiative, who makes the enemy react instead of reacting to them. 4 minutes over Germany changed warfare forever. One man, one choice, one doctrine, the devil's dare, and the tail gunner who proved that sometimes the best way to survive is to make absolutely certain your enemy doesn't.